Good morning, everybody. We're going to call the March 13, 2023 council work session to order. We are going to start with a presentation and swearing in of two new officers. If there is family in the audience, you're welcome to come back here behind us to take photos.
Good morning, Mayor Dan Slaughter, Police Chief. It's my pleasure to introduce to you two new police officers that are starting this month. The first is Carl C.J. Giordino. He is graduated from the Windham High School in New Hampshire, and he's worked for the police department as a police aide since March of 2022. And Fufua Vang, who is from Minneapolis area, and he graduated from Coachman Park High School, and he served in the United States Army as an infantryman. And with your permission, I'd ask the clerk to swear him in.
Thank you, Chief.
Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Carl Giordino,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and government
the Constitution and government
of the United States
of the United States
and of the state of Florida
and of the state of Florida,
and the charter and laws
and the charter laws
of the city of Clearwater,
of the city of Clearwater,
that I am duly qualified
that I am duly qualified
to hold office
to hold office
under the charter and laws
under the charter and laws
of the city of Clearwater,
of the city of Clearwater,
and that I will
and that I will
well and faithfully perform the duties
perform the duties
of a police officer
of a police officer
on which I'm now about to enter.
on which I am now about to enter.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Be safe.
Congratulations, welcome.
Congratulations. Welcome aboard. Be safe.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Well, we welcome both of you, and we thank your family, and look forward to great careers. Be safe out there. Item 3.1.
Amend the city's fiscal year 2022-23 operating capital improvement budgets at first quarter.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Kayleen Castle, Budget Director. This is the first quarter budget review for the fiscal year 22-23 budget. This report reflects 3 months of activity, October through December, and also includes council action to date. In the general fund, revenues and expenditures are increased by $10,870 for the council-approved appropriation of general fund reserves to fund the annual wage increase for the city attorney. Other general fund amendments in this report include transfers between departments, which net to zero to reallocate funding. Adjusted for all items in this report, general fund reserves are approximately $57.9 million, or 31.6% of the current year's general fund budget, exceeding our minimum reserve requirement by $42.3 million at first quarter. In the solid waste and recycling fund, expenditures reflect the council-approved increase of $300,000 to provide for increased single-stream recycling costs. In the capital improvement fund, a net increase of $3,674,281 is reflected at first quarter. The following amendments represent increases to capital funds for actions previously approved by the council. This includes $462,000 in grant revenues from FEMA and the pump station replacement project, an increase of $70,000 in donation revenue in the athletic field shade structures project, and $79,200 in recreation facility impact fees in the Parks and Beautification R&R project. Other significant amendments to capital projects in this report include decreases in lease purchase revenue of $29,955 in the building and maintenance vehicle and equipment project, and $185,000 in the solid waste recycling vehicle equipment project. Increases in property owner share revenues of $48,604 in the Pinellas New Mains and Service projects, or New Mains and Service Lines project, and $102,308 in the Pasco New Mains and Service Lines project. An increase of $2,761,324 in revenues from Safety Harbor for their share of the Northeast Plant upgrades and improvement projects. Increases for reimbursements from Pinellas County of $8,392 in the sanitary sewer relocation project, and $181,517 in the line relocation maintenance project, and an increase of $153,591 in parking fund revenues in the Seminole Boat Launch maintenance project. In the Special Program Fund, an increase of $3,038,583 is reflected at first quarter. Significant amendments include $300,000 of grant revenues from the EPA for the Brownfield MAP grant, $39,697 in public safety grant revenues for federal forfeiture sharing and pedestrian bicycle safety, $458,553 in the Pinellas County School from the Pinellas County School Board for school resource officers for the 2022-23 contract and extra duty reimbursements received. $689,616 in contractual service revenue for police extra duty, $468,897 from the Juvenile Welfare Board for the 2022-23 summer and after school programs, $34,333 in donation revenues to support police and library programs, $6,400 in foreclosure registry fees collected, $498,680 in fines and court proceeds for public safety programs, the lien foreclosure program, and the tree replacement program, $135,281 in opioid settlement funds collected, $8,091 in interest earnings from the prior year, and we've transferred $283,834 between existing police programs. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Ms. Castle? Vice Mayor?
Thank you. I have just one on the opioid settlement funds where it says new program. It's on page 32. It's just because I sit on that advisory committee for the county. So it's my understanding, and we haven't had a meeting, I think our last meeting was 4 or 6 weeks ago, but we hadn't gotten full funding down from the state yet, or a federal, whatever, wherever it's coming from. So what is this 135,281 for?
That's just what we've received so far. From what I've heard, we're going to be receiving it over a long period of time. I don't know if David might be able to speak to more.
Okay.
Yeah, so there are different buckets from which the opioid settlements will be distributed. At the top level, Attorney General Moody's office had largely taken over the litigation, sometimes over the objection of litigating entities, but she has taken over the litigation, which means that when her office settled with, and as they continue to settle with various pharmaceutical defendants, her office is in charge of distributing a lot of those funds down to the local level. It's very formulaic, so we don't have to guess as to what we're going to get at the local level, but to Ms. Caskell's point, as those settlements get reached, and as the cases progress, that money will trickle in based on the formula that the AG has approved pursuant to the settlement. So
So it's like tobacco was back in the day.
exactly.
But I thought we were good, so is that just going to sit in an account? Because I thought we were going to pull our money regionally and have input about how best to utilize those funds.
With the opioid funding board that you're sitting on, those funds are going to be regional funds. These funds are earmarked specifically for the city of Clearwater, separate from those funds. However, it is going to be a decision for this council to make. Some cities have decided to take their individual funds, which are these, and to just submit them to the regional pot. For example, Safety Harbor did that, but Safety Harbor is also a very small town. And so compared with us, council's gonna have to make that decision as to whether you'd like to use these funds separately for our purposes, or whether you'd like to ultimately deposit these into the regional funds, and then let the opioid funding task force handle it. Each city's gonna have to make that decision on their own.
So this is just the first deposit to open the account for opioid funding specifically for Clearwater.
Specifically for Clearwater, yes.
And we made a special program for it, because that's where we put all the restricted funds, so it'll stay there until you decide how we'll spend it.
Do you have any idea? So we have an initial deposit of 135,000 plus. Is that going to come monthly, quarterly? Do we have any idea?
It really depends on the pace of the litigation,
Okay.
more than anything else. And with General Moody's office taking it over, it's really going to be, they're going to drive the train on that, and it'll come in as they come in. Sorry, I don't have more specifics on that.
There's multiple defendants.
Right.
So,
Okay, thanks.
any other questions? All right, we'll hear more of that on Thursday. 4.1.
Approve lease renewal option between 600 Cleveland Street LLC and the City of Clearwater.
Morning. Dylan May, Real Estate Services, Economic Development and Housing Department. On August 2nd, 2018, Council approved a 5-year lease for 1 Clearwater Tower, Bank of America building. The present lease term, which expires at midnight on January 31st, 2024, shall be extended for 60 months to January 31st, 2029, unless sooner terminated pursuant to the terms of the lease. Per the original lease agreement, the 5-year renewal option must be exercised 270 days prior to expiration on or before May 6, 2023. Rent payments will continue to escalate at a rate of 3% annually after initially being set back to $19.90 per square foot per year. The current monthly payment is based on $20.82 per square foot per year. Please note the lease commencement date, as shown in Addendum 1 of the original lease, was adjusted from November 1st, 2018 to January 15th, 2019, when the city received certificate of occupancy. Therefore, the lease renewal timeline is adjusted to reflect the 60-month renewal period. Be happy to address any questions.
Any questions? Councilmember Albrecht.
Not a question, but a comment, I guess. Unfortunately, we're having to renew this, but hopefully we'll be in our new city hall by the time this, hopefully not at the end of this new extension, but somewhere in the middle.
Other questions? Well, look on the bright side. If a new city hall costs $40 million and you were getting a 4% return on that, it's 1.6. So this lease is cheap.
And
But
here
that's
we are.
just math. Consent?
Yeah.
5.1.
Approve the purchase of excess property insurance, including bridges, auto physical damage, boiler, and machinery and terrorism coverages.
Good morning, Council. My name is Tom Moran, Risk Manager for the city, and requesting approval at level insurance provided for in this agenda item at an amount not to exceed $5.1 million and at a property rate of .5389 per $100 of value. Authorize appropriate officials to execute the same. Any questions?
Questions? Vice Mayor?
I just had a question. I like to have some kind of context, but do we have any information about what similar cities are paying, other municipalities in our region? Are they encountering similar increases in the premiums?
I'd like to introduce Michael Gillum, but yes, we do have that. All these are estimates as we're approaching the April 1st renewal period, and all those municipalities are in a similar situation as we do that. Michael Gillum is our representative branch president for the Orlando office with Gallagher.
Yes, we do have some specific data that we could share as far as the renewal increase ranges that we're seeing for other similar cities, counties, and governmental entities. And the increase that we're seeing here is consistent with what we're seeing across the board. There are a lot of renewals in the 3-1 and 4-1 date range that we can share specifics with staff on.
I mean, it falls in line with what residents are seeing with insurance costs as well. But I just thought, yeah, it'd be nice to, we're not any outlier or anything.
Absolutely.
At what point do we start to take on even more liability, self-insure? I mean, these are overarching policies, but are you seeing other municipalities who are in good financial condition taking on more?
It depends on the location. We have some that are taking, rather than the 5% named windstorm deductible, because the real driver of this is the cost of the named windstorm insurance. We have seen some entities take large flat dollar deductibles in the $50, $100 million range and self-fund those to buy excess coverage above that. And there are some that are cutting back limits dramatically to reduce their spend. Where we're at as far as a limit on this proposed renewal is within the 250-year expected storm range. So we were at 75 million. This renewal has reduced to 50 million to save costs, but also stay within a safe level according to the wind models. But there are options that we can look at, whether it be a higher percentage deductible or a flat deductible. It just, it's just a matter of the size of the schedule that you have and the willingness to take on that risk.
What is going on with the reinsurance market?
Well, I guess the best way to explain it is I think reinsurance for the years, 4 or 5 years prior to Hurricane Ian hitting was probably artificially deflated in its pricing. So you had a lot of carriers that were taking advantage of buying cheap reinsurance. And really the 1/1 is a huge renewal date for catastrophe reinsurance. And on that renewal, reinsurance carriers acted dramatically. So the carriers that purchase reinsurance were getting that cut back in half, sometimes rates doubling, which then trickles down to them being able to deploy less capacity to the policyholder and increasing rates. So really, it was basically maybe something that should have happened, and these rates should have trickled up on the reinsurance side for years prior to Ian. And 1/1 was really just a culmination of all of that hitting at once. And you have carriers looking at, if you had a statewide portfolio in, say, 4 of the last 5 years, there's been a major wind loss, and a lot of this has been priced for once every 5 years, and now you have carriers saying, well, we've got to price this and adjust what we're charging, expecting a Cat 3 or Cat 4 to hit Florida every year.
So under the terrorism coverage, does that cover cyber as well?
There's a separate policy that covers cyber insurance that is effective on 10/1, so it's not a part of this renewal.
Okay. And then the McMullen Bridges, plural, we cover the bridge on McMullen Booth? The overpass, or, that's in the summary?
We covered, those 3 bridges are covered in the policy, and that's always been the case. And my first time doing this for this year, but that's been the case, I'm told. Those
Is
3
that
bridges.
the overpass or the Bayside Bridge? Because there's no other bridge on McMullen Booth.
We can, I'll get back to you with that clarification. Maybe that's
McMullen Booth is a county road, so I don't know why we would be covering any of it.
So I can get back to you with that information. That could be a leftover typo, but that was pulled right from our executive summary
Would it be
that
the
was provided
pedestrian
to us.
bridge, maybe?
That may be it. But it says bridges, plural, too.
Yeah.
There's 3 bridges, that's my understanding. The Sankey, the one.
Like it's Sankey and the Mandalay Channel Bridge, but
But I can get that clarification.
Okay.
So we're clear on that.
All
I'll
right.
get that to you by the end of the day.
by Thursday would be fine.
Okay.
Thanks. Consent? 6.1. Thank you.
Accept a gas utility easement from BC Clearwater Senior Housing.
Good morning, Council. Alex Leon with the Engineering Manager with the Gas Department. So this easement is acceptance for this easement to bring our service line to the back of the property where the meter is planned to be installed. It'll allow us easier access to the property.
Any questions? Consent?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
7.1.
Continue to April 2023, approve amendments to the Clearwater Comprehensive Plan to address the creation of a new Parks and Rec impact fee system. And 7.2 is also to continue. Council, these were items that were supposed to be heard, but the ad did not run as scheduled, and so that's the reason why it's being continued, but needs to remain on the agenda.
All right, 7.3.
Approve events budget of $482,000 for the general fund reserves for the grand opening of Coachman Park.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. I am Art Cater. I am the interim Parks and Recreation Director. And when I'm not doing that, I'm the Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation. Listen, I wanted to do this. Actually, I didn't even tell Chris I was going to do this, but I wanted to come up and just tell you, this item basically is to approve the event budget for the grand opening of Coachman Park. After 7 years of planning and construction, and for some of us, over 20-plus years of dreaming what can happen in the downtown area and revitalization of Bayfront, Coachman Park will open on June 28th, 2023. And we invite everyone to come. Staff is planning a grand celebration, not of one day, not of 3 days, but 8 days, so everyone can come and enjoy and see the park. If we didn't do even a celebration, people would want to come just to see the wonderful park that is just going to transform the downtown area and Clearwater in general. Based on the annual event, Clearwater Celebrates America, you're all familiar with it, on the 4th of July. We've had that for over 40 years. Staff decided to basically get some themes around Clearwater Celebrates America. And so we're going to present today some themes for each day. All of the days, it should be pointed out, there'll be something for everybody to come and to enjoy. It should be pointed out also that this budget does not include the public safety element, which will be a separate agenda item that you'll have to look at further. We just needed to get going with the project. We're less than 4 months away, so we have to begin doing some contracts, those types of things. Now, with that introduction, I wanted to turn the presentation over to the person who is responsible not only for all of these events coming up, but will be responsible for the maintenance and the programming of the park thereafter, forever. Chris Cook? Good luck.
What an introduction. Mayor, Council, happy to be here with you all this morning. I get the opportunity to present this to you. However, as you all know, this is such a large thing that every department within the city's been involved. Special thanks to the city manager's office, Art and our entire department, public communications, police and fire, which we've met with a lot. Truly a citywide effort that we're going to be pulling off. And then thanks to Ruth Eckert Hall, Bobby's here today in support as well. So it's been exciting as we get going. So the PowerPoint today is going to go over a day-by-day schedule. However, just so you all know, we haven't contracted anything of yet. We wanted to show you the vision of everything to make sure it's supported before we then go in and start contracting these things. Staff will begin coloring this in as soon as possible so that can build the excitement as we announce who's performing at these things, who our partners are. And then we also have room, obviously, now for any ideas council has about partners or things to add into this as well. The last piece, Joelle is going to talk about the public engagement survey that's gone out, as well as how we're going to be communicating out the grand opening events. But there is also 3 public meetings that will be coming up within the next several weeks. We'll be talking about the public art components to the park, as well as how people can program activities and reserve certain areas of the park will be part of those public engagement meetings as well. I tried to filibuster long enough to get going. All right, are we ready? Good? Okay.
Yeah.
So as we discussed, it's a week-long celebration. We'll be beginning on that Wednesday, June 28th through July 4th, which has been that historic Clearwater Celebrates America event. You'll see things daily, including food and beverage vendors, outdoor exercise classes, and then we'll go through a scheduled timeline. So we took the very successful theme of Clearwater Celebrates America and just broke that out throughout the entirety of that week-long celebration grand opening, so that we have different themes for each day, all following that same model. And I'll go kind of day by day through here now. So the grand opening first day will be that Clearwater Celebrates Coachman Park, will be our traditional ribbon cutting events. Even with that, we're looking at doing a grander scale with using our Showmaster stage and having programming and entertainment going on during the grand opening. Because this is a Wednesday during the middle of the week, it's also a great opportunity to get our city staff to be down there and to be engaged with the park. So we've had employee wellness walks around the holidays, so we're looking at recreating and doing that as part of the grand opening. And then really just engaging all of our departments to be there, be supportive, and going through the park.
Do we know what time that's going to be on June 28th?
It has not been scheduled as of yet.
Okay, because I'm looking at calendars. I want to make sure we get ahead of it.
Okay. Yeah, as soon as we're done with this meeting, actually later today, we're going to start going through timing of all of these things.
Okay.
And then with a free community concert at the Sound, which will be in that evening. And so we're working with Bobby and Susan and Ruth Eckert on how we'll do that event there, as well as some Coachman Park branded giveaways, just again capitalizing on the excitement of the new branding. That Thursday will be Clearwater Celebrating Diversity and Culture, utilizing different vendors and dance troupes and activities again, some additional giveaways, and then a concert that night as well. I'll talk a little bit later about the importance of why we're not only is it the summer and it does rain and there is heat that we will deal with, there are also some park specific things to the park on why we will be timing certain things out, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, a free community concert again on that Thursday. That leads us into the weekend, which we anticipate being higher volumes of traffic and higher volumes of residents and visitors. We'll begin our Tunnel to Towers Mobile Museum exhibit, which is a traveling exhibit that's been in this region and area before. We are looking at, as I'd mentioned, craft beer garden, which would be part of the food beverage experiences, children's activities, really that buskers, street entertainment, and children's activities, and even the local music on the lawn. The vision of that is almost like a downtown Disney feel, where regardless of what time you go through the park, there will be different activities going on for people to sit, enjoy, and experience. And then we'll be working with the Ruth Eckerd Hall staff on a larger concert that evening within the Sound. That brings us to Saturday, which we're going to have a neighborhoods component to. We're calling it Clearwater Celebrates Community. Working with, and we've pitched an idea with the neighborhoods department about bringing out the different neighborhoods and doing T-shirt giveaways so people can show their community pride. We're going to have a 5K, Coachman Park 5K that morning. Again, utilizing that same approach as I mentioned on Friday with kind of the downtown Disney feel with activities and things going on throughout the daytime, and then the larger concert again that evening on that Saturday. Takes us into Sunday. So we've had a lot of success in the last couple of years working with some of our Latin and Hispanic vendors and promoters. And so there's one example of a logo on there of a group that we've worked with that drew thousands of people into the downtown. And so really utilizing this night to celebrate that success of those promotions and that promoter, but also just celebrating the Hispanic community with dance classes, local music again, performances, and then really the whole theme and food trucks and all those things will be able to fit around that theme for that Sunday. And again, that Sunday evening will be a large concert within the Sound. That brings us to Monday, which is really a highlight of the passive recreation areas of the park. So there won't be any larger events that day. There will be some setup obviously going on for the 4th of July the next day. But as I mentioned at the beginning, there will be health and fitness exhibits and classes going on through that entire week. We're also going to work with the community and our Callie Ross, our volunteer coordinator, on doing some community cleanup efforts, as well as a community wellness walk, taking the concept we did for the staff and offering that out to the community. That then brings us to our Clearwater Celebrates America, the 4th of July. I'd said earlier about the timing being something that we're very cognizant of. So within the venue, the largest pack of restrooms that we have are within the area that's the ticketed part of the stage. So we really want to make sure that we're timing things out so when there's concerts going on at within the Sound, that we're giving a nice transition time for people to not to have to bring in portalettes and other things like that in different areas of the park, so we can utilize all the assets without kind of bumping into each other on a timeline perspective. So when we talk about Clearwater Celebrates America, that is even more true because we know there's going to be a large volume of people that are just going down for the fireworks that night. So all of our activities during the day, we want to have a nice closing time to give us several hours to clear out vendors, clear out activities, and be prepared for the massive people that are just going to be coming in for the fireworks that evening. So that's why it's split up kind of into two ways. So during the day, again, we'll have the mobile exhibit, working to have a classic car show. That experience will actually be a linear experience going all the way up Cleveland Street, so that people have, as they're parking and as they're utilizing the shuttle service we're looking to provide, there will be activities and activations where people will kind of have a built-in excitement as they're entering the park. So the car show will be part of that. DJs, photos, booths, market vendors, again, buskers and street entertainers, children's games. And then that will lead us into the fireworks, working with the orchestra to perform, leading into our city's largest fireworks display, which will be great right on the waterfront. And then closing it out with It's called silent disco, but you do happen to hear people singing out loud. But it's a nice way, we think, to end that evening. We don't want to just unleash maybe 15, 20,000 people all at the same time. So if we can hang on to a few thousand of them in the park and have an event like that, we think that'll be a great way to conclude that. So, Joelle can take from the communications point.
Good morning, Public Communications Director Joelle Costelli. How we are going to communicate about the event, we're going to use our traditional media relations. We're also going to be buying some ads. We're creating a web page with the Downtown Clearwater website. We're going to be creating a Coachman Park section. Ruth Eckerd Hall is going to have the portion of ticket sales in the concert venue on their site, and the city is going to have a couple areas where you can find out information on Coachman Park. And the Downtown Clearwater website will be the main website that will promote the park. We're going to include the grand opening celebrations in all of our city publications, such as My Clearwater, the utility bill stuffer, and then we're going to send out information to our community partners, neighborhoods, and we're looking at a postcard mailer to all the homes in Clearwater. Auto dialer, phone calls, emails, text notifications are all things that we're using with our new website that we're going to try. Variable message boards will be used to alert people to the traffic and parking concerns, and we're going to be promoting alternative transportation options including Uber, Lyft, remote parking, and a shuttle system that we're working on finalizing. We're also going to try to encourage people to come throughout the week so that we don't overcrowd that main July 4th day. We started on February 22nd with a survey, an informal survey asking residents what they wanted to see in Coachman Park. We sent it out via our people who are recreation card holders, as well as sent it out on social media. And we have a pop-up page when you go to the Coachman Park section of the main website. A pop-up comes up to have you take the survey. So far we've had about 1,400 responses, and we're going to keep the survey open until the 22nd of March. People spent about 4 minutes and 38 seconds on the survey, and our number one geographical area where people have submitted information from is downtown Clearwater. We've asked them rank the following items in order of the most important to the least important for attending an event. The top two answers, which were pretty equal in responses, was the cost of a ticket and the parking availability. So those are in the top blue section. Food and beverage options, diversity of things to do in addition to the event, shopping and restaurant options outside of the park, and then park accessibility. What activities would you engage in at the park? Number one thing is attending events. Second could be considered the same if you look at the performance venue as the source of those events, and then passive uses of the park would be second or third. What events would you attend at the park? Performing arts venues, farmers market tend to be the top two things that people want to come to the park for. An outdoor movie, athletic events, food and drinks, also available in conjunction with something happening at the park. This is just a word art of things that people wanted to come to the park for. Pickleball is not available at the park, but it continues to be something that people ask for at Coachman Park.
Everywhere else.
Everywhere else, yes. Your mayor's forum, it was the first topic of discussion were all three cities. Farmers market is something that people continuously want to see in the park. So there was nothing that stood out as the number one thing when the open response. How often are you most likely to visit Coachman Park? A few times a month was what most people had said. And our survey takeaways, our parking availability, and the cost of an event are the things that people are most concerned about, and affordability of attending the park. Safety, the presence of the church, access to park amenities, all of those also come up in the survey. As I said, the survey is still going to be open until March 22nd, so that'll be a month that it's out on the street. And with that, Chris and I will take any questions. We're going to have Omar available for questions for traffic.
All right, questions? Councilmember Teixeira?
First, let me say, great job on the planning of all those activities, you really considered the results of the survey. It's very diverse and to all age groups, so I'm very pleased to see that. In terms of the tunnels to towers, where will the mobile truck be parked specifically?
So that is really kind of our next step in this, is laying out where everything's gonna go. Right now, our initial thought, it would be kind of where Cleveland Street terminates into the park and does kind of a loop roundabout area. We're thinking down on that lower part of the park down there would be where it would be located. But we'll need to map everything out to make sure the rest of the activities will fit, because that mobile exhibit will be multiple days in the same location. So we want it to be in a visible area that's lit up, that's protected, but also fits in well with all the other activities we have planned.
And is entrance free for the public, or it's charged?
So I don't have everything programmed in my head with that yet. We are bringing that item, we will have that item done separately after this meeting, so I'll get that answered for you.
Okay. And last but not least, in terms of the farmers and crafters market, at any time, is it under the canopy or is it always going to be in the green, so susceptible to the weather?
Yeah, I think I won't say it won't ever be under the canopy area, but I think with that, we'll want to figure out the best way to utilize the park. So we may have one iteration of what a map will look like the first time we do it, and then it may change and alternate depending on what makes the best sense. But as of right now, we haven't talked to Ruth Eckert or anyone else about doing the markets under the canopy. It's been the conversations with markets have been mostly either around the green or the garden or some of the other areas within the park.
Councilmember Albritton?
So I think, you mentioned it, the main concern is parking. It's nice that we're spreading it out over 8 days, but I think if we do a program, we have parking downtown, but the signage is going to be important to point people where that is when they come down. So I'd like to make sure that we do that as we're coming down on all, three roads, Gulf to Bay, or Court Street, Drew Street, and Cleveland. At least to get people downtown, and some of the, especially at night after 5 o'clock, a lot of the parking garages are open.
Yep. So you couldn't agree more. We want to make sure we have signs telling people where to go. Part of the budget request we have also was to add in a Jolly Trolley circulator that will help people get from the garages to the active areas of the park. Especially in that first week, we're listening to what people say their concerns are, and we want to have options for how people can engage and interact with the park.
Do you have something to add to that, Omar?
Oh, sorry.
Omar, Teletraffic Engineering Manager. The whole idea behind the whole event is to divert Fort Harrison around a kind of a closed area during the event, just to keep the whole event area between Court and Drew and Myrtle become a more pedestrian-friendly area, so that people who are arriving in a controlled manner, police will deploy the VMS signage to help direct the public to certain specific route for their final destination. We have approached Pinellas County Traffic Management Center to also use them in deploying softwares that will impact Google Map and all of that for the destinations. All of those will be used, and hopefully we'll have a good first event, and we'll learn from it how best to funnel traffic into that area and out of that area.
Can I piggyback on that? Have we talked about, for just 4th of July? 4th of July is unique. I'm not worried about the traffic for a regular concert. People will come at different times, and I don't think they're all going to leave simultaneously, but 4th of July is always a nightmare. Have we thought about having directional traffic? So for instance, Drew Street only going eastbound until you get to at least Myrtle?
We have thought about that. It's a tricky business to control, because either when you deploy it and when you get out of that type of venture of one directional, could be a challenge for everybody. I would be more bold to tell you when we have a smart infrastructure. So currently we will be relying on the police, and it's too much to manage as such. So I think with time we will learn the best way of handling this.
Well, again, I think it's only for 4th of July, but if you go to Gainesville or you go to Tallahassee and you see how the traffic is managed after they're letting out 80 to 100,000 people, they're using one-ways for a very limited amount of time, but it disperses the traffic rapidly.
I totally agree. It's all about expectation, driver expectation. So if you plan to visit a location and you are used to knowing that this location takes an hour to reach, you kind of work around that expectation. I'm not saying that we cannot improve. We have always room for improvements, but we will be monitoring this very closely.
Are the fireworks going to be in the normal place, so the bridge will have to be inspected after?
Yes, we did just close an RFP out for a fireworks operator. That is the main shot location. And so we'll be working with police as well as the street sweepers to get those areas cleaned up as quickly as possible. But one of the major concerns is for every, I don't remember the exact metric, but for every minute of closure, I think it's about 6 minutes of backup. So looking at an enhanced fireworks budget doesn't mean it's double the length of show. We still want to work with police to make sure that is very consistent with historically what the road closure time has been. There may be more shells and more locations where things are going off, but it's not necessarily a longer duration.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah. I had a couple of questions about the cost. And I was just wondering, so food and beverage vendors, we pay $10,000 for food and beverage vendors to come in?
No, typically,
Because this is everyday activities and general cost, it's on that.
yeah, and I think there's just some, there's different ways to do food and beverage vendors. So if we bring in food trucks, community organizations, things like that, there wouldn't be costs necessarily associated with that. If the city was purchasing goods, though we may be selling it and offsetting that cost, there still could be some costs. So we haven't determined if we're going to look at purchasing and reselling or if we're going to rely on local vendors.
Okay, so that's just if we need it?
Correct.
Okay. And then I had a question about, same kind of thing for the buskers, street performers. I know it's only $1,000, but we pay buskers?
So not always, but the level of entertainment that you can get, and I've talked to the Steve and Lisa Chandler who do the busking out at Pier 60 Nightly Festival there, and they've told us and recommended the same thing. If you get free performers, it's entertainment, but if you spend a little bit of money, your entertainment level goes way up.
Okay. And this is a grand opening, right? So.
Kind of the thought, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then I wanted to understand the Florida Orchestra in the performance venue is $85,000. So that will be a free concert? So we're absorbing that? That's the 4th of July concert?
Yeah, it'd be a free concert. However, and I've mentioned this before, there will be a need to meter the entrance to it so that there is a capacity for the venue, and we need to ensure that we don't saturate the venue, so there will be some sort of metered entrance. We haven't identified if that will be through a sponsor or if that'll be through the website, but there will be some way, even though it's free, that people will have to go through to get a ticket in their hands.
Okay. And then, wasn't there talk about the Florida Orchestra using this venue as their home certain times of the year?
Yes, and Art and I have talked to the CEO of the Florida Orchestra. They've given us a proposal. And we'll be bringing that to you guys soon. For the purposes of the grand opening, we wanted to break out this piece to get this here now, but the Florida Orchestra is very interested in getting a proposal to the council to look at as being considered the outdoor home, but also doing multiple events in the park throughout the year.
Okay, so I just wanted to get a little handle on, so that's something that the Florida Orchestra would negotiate with us and not Ruth Eckerd Hall?
Well, it would, so part of it would be for the 4th of July.
I get that can be
For the
us
other
for the
events?
opening, yeah.
So it's part of the agreement we have with Ruth Eckerd as 10 dates
Right.
that the city can use. So
Right.
if the council decided that those would be 2 of the 10 dates, then we would negotiate with the orchestra, with Ruth Eckerd being involved on the management and operational side of it.
Okay.
They're in a little bit of flux with Mark Cantrell leaving, so.
And that leads me into, I mean, I think it's appropriate, I guess, to pay the Florida Orchestra to come for a free concert for our grand opening. I'm just, wanting to understand that part of it is these days leading up to the 4th of July, are we using any of our 10 allocated days for those evening concerts at the Sound?
So what we have is, for that Wednesday and Thursday would be the first 2 of those dates. The 4th of July and the 5th of July, even though we're not using the 5th unless it's a rain date,
Okay.
is already in the agreement, so that would not count against it.
Okay, so we're using 2 of our 10 days for this grand opening multi-day event. Okay, good. Okay. And then I guess we'll learn more about whatever relationship we have with the Florida Orchestra, if they're using some of our 8 remaining days, or if they just contract with Ruth Eckerd Hall and we're not giving up our 8 days to pay the Florida Orchestra to come and play and charge an admission, right?
Yeah, that would be part of what the negotiation discussion would be, whether or not there's an admission charge to it, or if it continues to be something free to the community.
Right. Okay.
And we're looking, I believe that is at our next council meeting, we're looking at bringing you that list of 10 dates.
Okay. Okay.
So, we're not talking like months from now, we're talking the next meeting right now.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
I mean, we used to have the Florida Orchestra for a free concert, free to citizens, never free. We always had to pay the orchestra because of, in their contract with all of their musicians, they just aren't free. So it's something we can decide whether we want to have as an amenity, I think, for citizens. I don't think we ever exceeded more than about 4,000 people at those free concerts. A couple questions, Joelle. Where are the rest of the pages of the survey? I've got one of 94, but on the bottom of the page, it starts at page 37 of 149. What's in the rest?
I think, I'll have to verify with Ally, but I think that was the free response, and then she categorized the open-ended questions into different categories of answers.
Okay. And then the Jolly Trolley, how many are we going to have? Is it going to be 3, 2, 6?
Yeah, I believe it was 6.
Okay. So I'm assuming we're going to use MSB, Garden, the county lot. I'm hoping the county lot across from Peace Memorial. I saw the gates were down this weekend. I'd like us to look into that.
Yeah, and as we said, we hope to bring another agenda item here very quickly in regards to parking, police, fire, and all the other safety. And so you'll be able to see that, I think, at that time with maps and those locations. So some of those questions we simply can't ask or answer today.
All right. How many restrooms are we going to bring in? I know this is not a normal event, never is.
For the 4th of July, I don't say I could give an exact answer, so we do have metrics that we use based on how many people and what the hours of those are.
What's 10 grand buy you?
10 grand would give us more restrooms than we would need, especially knowing that the majority of the people are coming for a shorter period of time.
Okay. All righty. Consent?
Yeah.
Councilmember Bunker, did I miss you? I'm sorry.
Mayor?
I apologize. Councilmember Bunker first, and I'll get back to you.
I was happy to see the money in the budget for the Jolly Trolley. I think it's important that we have that park and ride. Is it going to be a free park and ride?
Yes.
Okay. And are we considering another lot away from the downtown, especially on the night of the fireworks?
We have looked at multiple options. Omar's helped us with a consultant look at multiple options, so I don't think we would say at this point anything is off the table, but we want there to, we've done events in the past where we've done it all the way at Joe DiMaggio and other places. The length of the ride that people have to take, sometimes we hear more negative feedback than we get positive, so we'll look at every available option that we have that we think makes sense for people.
Okay. I'm fine.
Vice Mayor.
A follow-up question to that. So, having a pickup at the East Library or somewhere in Countryside, are you going to have those community meetings? When are they scheduled for, related to the park?
I don't remember the 3 dates that we have. They are at the end of this month and in April.
Okay, so shortly.
Yes.
Is one of them out in the Countryside area?
Countryside, Main Library, North Greenwood. I've asked for us to move one out to either the beach and also Morningside, but
I've spoken with our neighborhoods manager about that, and she's going to be extending, either changing locations or adding dates. I think she's going to add dates.
Good. So that would be a relevant question for those parts of our city, yeah. Okay.
can we talk to, I don't even know who owns the Stone Buick property, which is on Cleveland, just west of the Crum property. But that would be one I would think we could look at, and then maybe, I don't know who owns the Triangle property now either. I think the church owns it, but that's a lot of space right there on Fort Harrison and Drew.
Yeah, and I know our parking manager has been talking about finding these opportunities of lots that we could use so that, again, we leave no stone unturned.
I'd like to see some cooperation there. Mr. Delk.
Thank you, Mayor. Two comments. One is just to reinforce the idea that the public safety request will be back at the next meeting. Just a matter of timing to cost out the itinerary you're seeing today. And we've got a full parking, transportation management kind of plan scenario that the public safety folks in conjunction with traffic operations have been working on. So we can bring you that and see what we're thinking there. Number two, the CRA has been participating with the Parks Department in terms of their participation on particularly Diversity Day, the cultural days, and helping line up some of the a range of vendors to reflect both of those days of celebration in our park. They've got a lot of good connections in those areas. And lastly, as an ask, I would like to get your thoughts on the opening day, the 28th. We've had some internal discussion about whether or not the ribbon cutting would occur in the morning or in the late afternoon and evening. Parks has talked about kicking off the ribbon cutting with a celebration, maybe band and music in the park. I like that idea a lot. But if that's the direction that we go, then that probably lends itself more to a later afternoon, early evening crowd when we can get a crowd there. That does not mean that activity would not start in the park in the morning, but we might have an official ribbon cutting late afternoon, early evening, and then kick things off with the band and celebration and some more details in that area. So I'd really like to get a sense of what you all how you feel about that, and what your preferences may be as we go to finalize the agenda.
Well, I mean, we're talking June 28th.
Yes.
So the rainy season can start by then, which unfortunately generally happens late afternoon. But it will probably be more comfortable in the early evening, late afternoon. I wouldn't want to do it before people are off work and have the opportunity to come downtown. I think, it would be silly to do it in the morning.
We'll proceed accordingly.
I don't know how, do you all agree with that? Or?
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay,
That's it.
all right. Consent?
Yep.
8.1. Thank you all.
Approve the request from Tri-Prop Clearwater, the owner of property address 400 Coronado Drive, to vacate a portion of the 70-foot wide platted right-of-way.
Morning, Council. Tom Mahoney, Engineering Department. This request is to vacate a portion of Gulfview Boulevard right-of-way. This is a conditional vacation where they will be required to relocate our existing utilities and within 3 years. If they don't do that, then vacation's void. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Mahoney? Vice Mayor?
I just had a question about, does this, will it impact significantly public accessibility to the beach? It doesn't really look like it from
No,
the...
will not.
And then it seems like a significant stretch of property that, that's going to add value to that property owner?
And we'll get taxes on that value.
Okay, that was it.
Other questions? 8.2. Thank you,
Approve
Mr.
the
Mahoney.
easement vacation request from property owner addressed at 2584 Deer Run East.
Good morning. Robert Kazmer, Real Estate Coordinator, Public Works Engineering. Good morning, Mayor, council members. For your review today is an easement vacation. The property owners at 2584 Deer Run East have requested the city to vacate a portion of a 10-foot platted utility easement along the rear of their property line. The purpose of the vacation is to allow for the installation of a pool deck. There are no private utilities within the easement. City staff has reviewed and approved. Any questions?
This may be the smallest vacation I've ever seen.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? All right. We'll
Thank
talk about
you.
it further on Thursday, 8.3.
Very good. Thank you, Tom.
Approve a joint participation agreement with Florida Department of Transportation for the implementation of V21 pedestrian warning system.
Good morning, Council. Omar Atala, Traffic Engineering Manager. This is a pilot project that will expand connected automated vehicle technology currently planned to be implemented in Clearwater and within Pinellas County, providing the infrastructure of vehicle-to-infrastructure communication, which is a wireless exchange of data between vehicles and road infrastructure along the designated corridor. Pilot test drivers, notification of pedestrian presence at signals via communication of warning messages to vehicles, to mobile application, and onboard units. The objective is to improve pedestrian count data for better planning and to improve pedestrian mobility and safety. The item is to enter into cooperative agreement with FDOT. A future item will be presented to the council before equipment is purchased and or installed. Any questions?
Questions? Vice Mayor?
I don't know what this looks like. I don't understand what we're talking about here.
Okay. So now we are becoming very bold in the technology world, which means at all levels, communication is happening and detection is happening. So we will deploy analytic radars that basically capture all movements within the intersection and analyze that data and communicate that through certain integration of the system. So it is the future of mobility. It's what we call intelligent transportation system.
It captures all movement, so it'll capture pedestrians as well as vehicles.
When I planned for application for that grant with FDOT, it was based on crash data that we have captured on Alt 19, and it is a supplement of what Pinellas County is planning for Route 60. So it's a coordinated effort with the county and FDOT.
Does it capture like a rolling stop? Does it capture all that?
It captures everything.
Everything. Great. Okay.
I think more importantly, Omar, what is the result?
When is the result?
What is the result of capturing the data?
Then what? Yeah.
It starts with the driver becoming aware of his surrounding. And when you become as a driver aware, you become more responsive on your activities. So it's first, it brings up the awareness of the environment that you are in. Second, when technology kicks in, it also maybe controls, like we have with the vehicles now fitted with stop, automated stop. So in certain conditions, it may provoke smart vehicles to respond to certain conditions. It has certain values because statistics is showing those safer, better results, less crash conditions. So this is, I think, more and more becoming the future of our mobility.
Councilmember Albritton and then Bunker.
Okay, so, I mean, it does say pedestrian warning system connected vehicle project. This doesn't have anything to do with timing of traffic lights itself, is it?
So it will, at a later stage, it will make the signal more smarter and more responsive to the conditions, yes, at a later stage.
So this says FDOT, but doesn't the county have that already, and we were thinking about connecting with them?
Yes, we are definitely connecting with them because these types of systems can only exist when you have full integrations. So integration is essential.
Okay.
And we are, it's like we are complementing and integrating with the county and with FDOT. So that is a must. And actually those equipment will reside on fiber, the county, fiber.
So everybody's sharing that information?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay.
That's the intention.
Councilmember Bunker.
Yeah, I turned to Google yesterday and was researching this online, and I still don't have a great understanding of how it works. There were some examples that I think we also had in our presentation here as well, of a pedestrian walking into the crosswalk and a bus driver getting some sort of warning electronically on the bus.
Yes, sir.
So, and this is saying connected vehicle project. So for most vehicles coming through, how would they get any type of warning at all?
So it depends on what vehicle you're driving, whether it's a smart vehicle or not. And that's why there are provisions, and we are planning to procure 2 onboard units. Those onboard units will become a receiver for those types of messages if the user wants to have or procure that. The other option would be utilizing softwares that are using this on your app, mobile app. So there are provisions for different types of receiving information, these types of warning information.
I could see this being very helpful and useful and life-saving. I assume this is a trial to make sure that we understand how it's working and if it's working.
We are working very closely with Pinellas County. They have a bigger project on Route 60. We are participating in those meetings as a main stakeholder. And all of what manifests from that would be something that we will learn from and we will participate in. This is, again, their project also is a pilot project, so they're going through that learning curve and seeing what would be the most effective, whether it's vehicle to vehicle, infrastructure to vehicle. It could be in the future vehicle to vehicle, but all of that will be things that we will pick on, with time and optimize.
Thank you.
Councilmember Tejeda.
I guess I'm still a little bit unclear. So at this point, or the near foreseeable future, the data being collected now is for future implementation, correct? That's the time, right?
That's the planning part.
Right, and so what's the time frame for that before we see implementation of that data going live?
So this is a pilot project that will finish by end of 25. So hopefully by that time we'll have a good, effective solution with some trials. We've experimented. It's different ways of whether it's via apps or whatever, but we will definitely present to the council our findings. I'm planning also for some more coming to the council with some upgrade to the TMC, our city TMC. This is something I'm working on, I have been working on for a while, so that we, as a city, have the right tools in place to manage traffic as the county is doing, as the FDOT is doing. So data, some is analyzed in the controller at site. Some is analyzed at the TMC of different agencies, and some is analyzed at FDOT, and some is analyzed at cloud. These are all paths, and that's why the importance of integration has to happen.
Vice Mayor.
So it says roadside units will be located at the following intersections. I thought you said this was going to sit on infrastructure owned by the county?
Yes.
So there's not going to be any construction of a roadside unit?
No. The fiber are
Already there?
to the controllers. Those are like antennas, communication antennas that receives and broadcast information, and they will be located at all those 9 intersections.
Okay.
And FDOT is picking up all but 90,000 of this, so. Consent?
Yep.
8.4.
Thank you.
Approve the final plat for Oaks of Clearwater subdivision.
Morning, Council. Tom Mahoney. This will be a two-lot plat of an existing parcel. One lot will be for the existing retirement home and the construction of a two-story parking garage with retail space underneath. And the second lot will be vacant for future development. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Vice Mayor.
I went, because there wasn't a visual, I went and Googled up that address. It seems tight in there from the Google images, but,
Well, it is 4.3 acres, the overall site. So the entrance is off of Bay Street, I believe. And it's really, that's the existing conditions as it is now.
okay.
So is the retail just for the residents?
Mayor, I'm not certain. Most likely the retail is for the public, is for commercial. But that would have been approved through planning department, so I can't answer those questions.
Have we done a traffic study? Vice Mayor is correct. It's a dead end. to turn around, you have to go into the complex.
The traffic study wouldn't be part of the plat, so that again would be approved through the planning department. If they want to take any questions, I'll be happy to.
The last plat we approved has been a pain in my neck.
Yes.
Ms. Clayton, do we have any idea what's going to happen here?
Good morning, Lauren Matzke, Planning and Development. To date, they have approved a development order to construct the parking garage with a limited amount of commercial use at the bottom. That's partially required by code to have that ground floor retail there. That would have been reviewed by the Development Review Committee, so any traffic analysis would have been completed as part of that. They are requesting to divide the site with future plans to sell off the other portion of the property for future redevelopment. Nothing, to the best of my knowledge, has been submitted at this time for review for that secondary piece. The parcel that will have the structured parking and the existing assisted living facility and independent units remains the same. The way that they had to work it out was make sure there was enough land area to support the existing development on the site and provide enough parking to support the existing development on the site. So that is how it was carved out into the two parcels.
So because this property is still in the downtown plan,
Yes,
they're required to have ground level retail.
yes.
I want some more time with this one, so I'm not willing to put it on consent. I'd like to talk to staff this week.
Well, I definitely agree that that's something that should be discussed. Plats are an interesting creature, though, because our ordinance does require it to go on consent unless a supermajority of the council removes it from consent. The reason it's set up that way is because there are very few circumstances in which the council could lawfully deny a plat application. And so because the council cannot vote on this today, I think procedurally what will have to happen if this stays on the agenda for Thursday is that on Thursday, a supermajority of council could vote to remove it from consent. And at that point, it would come off of consent on Thursday, and the council could discuss it like any other non-consent item.
Okay. All right, 8.5.
Approve the final plat for Foster Groves.
Good morning, council. This plat will also create two lots from an existing parcel. One lot will be for the existing home and the other for future development. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Consent?
No.
9.1.
Approve the annexation, initial future land use map designation of residential low and initial zoning atlas designation of low, medium density residential for 1754 West Manor Avenue.
Morning, Dylan Prince, Plan and Development. This voluntary annexation petition involves a 0.193 acre property consisting of one parcel of land occupied by a detached dwelling. The applicant is requesting annexation in order to receive sanitary sewer and solid waste service from the city. The property is contiguous to existing city boundaries to the north, south, and east. It is proposed that the property be assigned a future land use map designation of residential low and a zoning atlas designation of low, medium density residential. The applicant is aware that the city sewer impact and assessment fees must be paid in full prior to connection and of the additional cost to extend city sewer service to this property. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, 9.2.
Approve the annexation, initial future land use map designations of residential low and water drainage feature overlay and initial zoning atlas designation of low, medium density residential for 1719 Owen Drive.
This voluntary annexation petition involves a 0.201 acre property consisting of one parcel of land occupied by a detached dwelling. The applicant is requesting annexation in order to receive sanitary sewer and solid waste service from the city. The property is contiguous to existing city boundaries to the north and east. It is proposed that the property be assigned future land use map designations of residential low and water drainage feature overlay and a zoning atlas designation of low, medium density residential. The applicant is aware that the city's sewer impact fee and assessment fees must be paid in full prior to connection and of the additional costs to extend city sewer service to this property. Any questions?
Any questions? 9.3.
Approve amendments to the Community Development Code addressing community gardens, detached dwellings, and residential infill projects in the MDR district.
Morning again, Lauren Matzke, Planning and Development. So this is the ordinance that was originally presented to council on February 16th, at which time there was general consensus to direct staff to make certain changes to the ordinance. The ordinance was continued to this week to provide time to make those changes and provide proper notice. Your agenda memo outlines the 3 sections that are modified based on this council direction. First, previously proposed regulations for LED rope or ribbon lighting have been removed. Second, proposed standards for attached electronic changeable message signing have been modified to remove a venue size requirement, to establish that this is limited to performing arts theaters, and to clarify that properties with multiple frontages can have this signage type on no more than 2 frontages. And then the recommendation by the Community Development Board to allow to allow fences up to 6 feet in height if open style along front property lines has been incorporated into the ordinance. So I didn't figure you wanted a whole presentation on the rest of the ordinance, but I can answer any questions on that or these.
Any questions? All right.
Just the community garden ones, they're allowed to have fences to lock in their belongings, correct? That's the last one. Just want to make sure. Yep, thanks.
All right, we'll discuss that further on Thursday. Any questions about 9.4 through 9.7, which are to be continued? 10.1.
Authorize an increase to purchase order for Xylem Water Solutions for the purchase and repair of lift station pumps.
Morning, Mr. Gardner.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Rich Gardner, Director of Public Utilities. The item before you today is the authorization of an increase in the purchase order amount for a sole source contract for flight pumps for water and wastewater systems. The pumps are used to replace existing equipment in kind. Replacement of pumps with other manufacturers' equipment would require re-engineering and modification to the existing systems. We're recommending an increase to the purchase order of $400,000 for a total PO amount of $900,000 for the current year, which runs through May 31st. We are also asking that the following contract year's amount be increased to $900,000 as well. I'm asking for you to authorize the increase to the purchase order, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Gardner? So when are our ratepayers going to start feeling all these?
You approved, I think it was last year, you approved a 3% increase annually for the, back then, 5 years. So it's going to be 3%. Hopefully we can...
We're going to be able to manage within that is really my question.
Right. Hopefully we'll manage within that. Every year we check it, or we work with finance to do a check on the rates to make sure they're still good. And we're hoping to maintain it.
Okay. Consent?
Yeah.
10.2.
Authorize an increase of purchase order to Enviro Waste Services Group for emergency and non-emergency pumping and tankering services.
Rich Gardner, Public Utilities. The item before you today is the authorization of an increase to the purchase order amount to Enviro Waste Services Group for emergency and non-emergency pumping and tankering services used throughout the water and wastewater system. These services are vital for protecting public health. This contract is piggybacked off of Pinellas County contract. We're recommending an increase to the purchase order of $40,000 for a total PO amount of $165,000 for the current contract year, which runs through September 13th, 2023. I'm asking for you to authorize an increase to the purchase order, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Vice Mayor.
So is this just the cost of doing business, or do we have an increase in pumping and tankering?
It's an increase in the amount of pumping and tankering. We used this contract when we had the issue on McMullen Booth up by the high school, where we were able to capture over 1 million gallons and return it, prevent it from going into the environment when we had the main break there. So we use a lot of money there. We're also using this for other things that we purchased other ways, and we feel we're getting economies of scale by using one contract.
Thanks.
Consent? 10.3.
Authorize a purchase order to Harrington Industrial Plastics and American Fabric Filler for a cumulative annual not to exceed amount of $160,000 for the period of March 17 through March 16, 2024 for the reverse osmosis plant cartridge filter.
I thought you were quitting.
Aid.
I lugged this all the way and then I forgot to bring it up. I just wanted to show you guys, this is what a cartridge filter looks like for the RO plants.
Takes a lot of energy to push water through those, right?
Yeah. The item before you today is the authorization of a purchase order for cartridge filters for the water treatment plants. The cartridge filters are used to remove particulate matter from raw water before it's treated at the reverse osmosis plants. We're recommending authorizing the POs to Harrington Industrial Plastics and American Fabric Filter Company in the cumulative not to exceed amounts of $160,000 for the first contract year, $170,000 for the second year, and $193,000 for the final year. This is a one-year contract through March 16, 2024, with the option for 2 one-year renewals at the discretion of the city. I'm asking for your approval to award, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Gardner?
Okay.
Consent?
Yep.
All right. 10.4.
Authorize a purchase order to Shannon Chemical Corporation for the supply of a dry blended polyortho-corrosion control chemical.
Rich Gardner, Public Utilities. The item before you today is the authorization of a purchase order for polyorthophosphate, a chemical used in water treatment to prevent corrosion in our pipes. We're recommending authorizing the PO to Shannon Chemical in the not-to-exceed amount of $177,000 for the first contract year, $195,000 for the second year, and $214,000 for the final year. This is a one-year contract through March 29, 24, with the option for 2 one-year renewals. I'm asking for your approval and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Consent? All right. Thanks, Rich. 11.1.
Authorize a purchase order to Ring Power Corporation for the maintenance, purchase, and rental of generators, transfer switches, replacement parts, and services.
Morning, Mayor, Council. Peter Bardo, Assistant Director of General Services. The item before you is a piggyback contract for the purchase, rental, and maintenance of generators and associated equipment for public utilities and general services. The contracts were sourced through Sarasota County as well as Sourcewell, which is approved by the manufacturer to offer this equipment at competitive cost. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Consent? 11.2.
Approve an amendment and extension to a service and access agreement between L3 Harris Technologies and the City of Clearwater.
Good morning, Council. This is Charles Eric Wilson, General Services, Radio Communication Division. This is a project that has taken 2 extensions to get done because we're working with 3 identities, L3 Harris, ourselves, and the state of Florida. So the good news is that everybody has finally come to an agreement on the contract, but more importantly, we also were able to work with L3 Harris in changing some of the contract where we were able to increase our share, revenue share on the tower agreement where we share the benefits of people renting space on the tower. It was 75-25. I'm glad to report that now it's 50-50, which would increase approximately $5,000 a quarter to the city, which would be a grand total of approximately $10,000 a quarter. So with that, if anybody has any questions of me, I'm more than happy to assist.
Any questions? I remember when we did the contract in '02, so there there's some in the county that would like us to get rid of this, but the chief is committed. Right, chief? Thumbs up. All right, consent? 12.1.
Mayor, these are third readings for land use, 12.1 through 12.3, and then 12.4, as we know, is the clinic.
Right. Any questions on any of those? Hearing none. 13.1.
Recycling update?
Good morning, Mayor and Council. This is something that I've asked the city clerk to add to the agenda and will remain on the agenda until we have worked through all of our recycling issues. And so some updates will be more meaningful than others. Today, I do have two items that I think are of really good news. The first being that we have signed a contract with our consultant, and so that work is going to begin this week. We look forward to them assisting us with negotiating the RFP that is out. That is the second update. In that the RFP is out. We did have one of the vendors reach out and ask us to extend it by 2 weeks, of which after collaborating on that, we decided we would do that. So that RFP is going to close on April 14th. So we'll have additional updates from that. Also, Mr. Micah Maxwell is going to go to the TDC meeting. I think it's next week. And so we should have an update as to what's going on in the county. And so that'll be a valuable update to provide at our next meeting. Lastly, just in terms of how we're doing on recycling, we are recycling a lot. In February, we recycled over 620 tons. Our contamination rate is about 18%. So that's something that we are looking into to do some targeting education as we better figure out what needs to be done as a result of that. We have engaged our second vendor that has a slightly lower rate, and so we started that a week or two ago, and so far that is going well. So we're continuing to send about an average of 4 trucks a day or 40 or 50 tons of material. So I think those are all good updates, and we will continue to do so, like I said, until this issue is completely resolved. I do have Mr. Kervin and Micah here if you have any additional questions.
Well, good to see things heading in the right direction. We'll look forward to seeing the proposals and whatnot. Any questions at this time? And the city manager has said she wants to make this a consistent update until we're completely back to normal. So, all right, very good. 13.2, the Drew Street Lane repurposing.
Yes, Mayor, we're going to be bringing back a draft letter for you at the next meeting, the first meeting in April, regarding the Drew Street. We want to have staff be prepared to answer any questions. This has been has generated a robust discussion for us, as one might expect. I think we're probably the key jurisdiction in terms of what changes are proposed by DOT. They are current given direction. They're at about 30% design now, so there is a substantial amount of design to go. What will happen after we decide with regard to our letter of support or not at the next meeting is that it will go through an lane elimination process with DOT. The construction funding is allocated for fiscal year 24, which is July 1 of 23 through July 1 of 24. Once DOT gets a green light for lane elimination, the design is expected to finish up rather quickly. However, typically with FDOT, there will be a public meeting before the 100% design likely occurs, or usually around the 60% stage. So this matter would be coming back to us at some point when the design narrows down. But at the next meeting, we'll have the draft for your consideration, along with preparation from staff to discuss the history of this project and where we are to date at the first meeting in April.
All right, questions, comments? Vice Mayor?
I thought, it was my understanding that in April or May, that it was probably going to be more likely to have a 60% depiction of what it's, what the design is, not just 30.
This was the note that we got back from Brian
Schroyer,
who sent the original ask for the letter, so we can update that. But I mean, I would expect that, it's possible for the drawings to move along fairly quickly from this point.
I mean, we have Whit in the audience. Do you have anything to add, Whit?
So you're going to have a draft letter for us in April that supports the complete streets?
Yes, and staff should be prepared if there's any questions that arise, that we should hope to be able to answer those.
Are we cutting it close with what FDOT is expecting as far as the
According to
time?
Brian, getting a letter from us mid-April is not an issue. So we'll be ready to forward one quickly at that point.
I will not be supporting the letter, so I think this is a disaster waiting to happen. I think that there will be a lot of finger pointing and regrets once this project is complete. I think we ought to be doing it the right way, which is widening the road and buying the right-of-way that's necessary. But I think being reduced down to 2 lanes with center turn lanes is going to be, we only have Gulf to Bay and Drew Street in the central part of Clearwater. Druid is worthless because of the lights. It's a great place if you want a Sunday afternoon drive, because it'll take you forever to go east and west. I just think this is a terrible solution. Mr. Blandon and I discussed it. He's told me I'm wrong, and I believe he's wrong. We had people that swore up and down that switching to 2 lanes on Fort Harrison was going to be the solution to everything. It is a parking lot the majority of the time. And I know there are more lights along that sector, but it is a mess. And unfortunately, people haven't adopted Myrtle the way that it was hoped. So I will be out of office, but I care about this city, and this has nothing to do with Imagine Clearwater, because that's one of the things I've heard in emails, and that is just, as I said earlier on the Parks and Rec presentation, I am not worried about traffic in downtown and at the park during normal events. We've been handling Jazz Holiday for decades and decades, where there's been anywhere between 10 and 15,000 people. 4th of July is a different animal. It is just moving around the city of Clearwater that is an issue. And all we are going to do is push more traffic into the Skycrest neighborhood and push more traffic over onto Gulf to Bay. And it is going to make an already over-congested road even worse. And, an intelligent transportation system is not going to solve it. So that's my position when this letter comes to us. I know this is almost a fait accompli, but Councilmember Tejeda.
My concern is that we're trying to solve one problem and then creating another one. And I kind of want us to step back and really look at the big problem. And safety is definitely an issue that I'm concerned about. But I don't want to be quick with having a quick fix and just now, going one way on each direction. I go on Fort Harrison and Drew, and I see the effect it took on Fort Harrison, and I see a lot of unsafe behavior on Fort Harrison because of that funnel effect. I see people going into neighborhoods, I see road rage, I see a lot of things that I think we didn't foresee. And so I don't think the options that we have right now, for me, it's not a quick yes. I just don't think it solves all the problem. And I would like to also think of the future. What are the needs of this city in the future? And I think that the options that are before us are not considering that. So I'm concerned that this is a quick fix, and I was hoping for a better option.
Councilmember Bunker and then the Vice Mayor.
How do we widen the streets in the neighborhood which has such safety problems when there's really very little room to do any widening?
Well, we're adding bike lanes, and we've got the east-west trail, which is less than a mile away. So on a bike, you can be there in literally a minute or two. So one of the reasons that we're doing this is to add bike lanes. And unfortunately, people use bike lanes for leisure. They're not using it for transportation. And there is property that could be purchased, but we would have to relocate utilities. It's extremely expensive, I understand that. But if you're going to do it right, do it right. And, you know, we're not. I mean, literally, think about Drew Street and where the east-west trail is. All you have to go is over to Druid and Turner and downtown, and now you've got a wonderful, wide path for people to be on. I just think this is very short-sighted. You talk about affordable housing. One of the ways that we're going to get affordable housing fixed, you're going to have some more density. And I know density is a dirty word in Florida, but that's going to be one of the ways that you get a solution. That is going to add vehicles, and we're reducing our capacity. And I've been told it's going to reduce times by literally seconds. I just don't believe it. I've seen it. And I know there's unintended consequences, because traffic is going to move into the neighborhoods, because Cleveland will be faster than Drew Street is. And the reason the traffic calming was done in Skycrest was, first of all, the opening of Keene Road, which Keene didn't used to go beyond Gulf to Bay. And once you open Keene and you bisected Skycrest, it pushed a lot of traffic into the neighborhood. But people are going to go back to using Cleveland, even with the roundabouts, once Drew gets bad. Drew's terrible. I get it. People speed. The lanes are too narrow. Nobody's debating that question. But we just don't have enough capacity east-west. We're much better north-south. I'm just telling you, I think this is a terrible mistake, but, you know, we're already down the road, no pun intended. Vice Mayor?
Well, in my understanding of it, you know, so the City Council approved in 2018 moving ahead with a complete street design approach. $8 million has been budgeted by FDOT to be used in fiscal year 2024, starting this summer, which means money can start to be spent July 1st this year. FDOT completed a $400,000 engineering study. So these are professionals who know about traffic and engineering and flow, and I trust them. People pay a lot of money for experts' feedback on this, and, you know, the information is that 60 can handle it, and we have Sunset, we have Drew, we have Cleveland, we have Route 60, we have Druid, we have multiple ones that come from east to west, and I tend to spend, you know, I'm trusting the experts. I'm not an expert in engineering and traffic flow. We pay for it. I don't second guess that. We do know that Drew Street continues to be a top accident street in our city county, and this is based on, you know, data. And we also know that residents overwhelmingly want to see Drew Street safer. From Keene heading west, it's a neighborhood. People are driving through a neighborhood. And, you know, as you said, the lanes are narrow, the sidewalk is far too narrow and close to the road. People want to be able to have a walkable city, to walk to parks. I spent about an hour and a half in Crest Lake Park on Sunday talking to some residents that were there, and a number of them want to cross Drew to go over and walk with wagons or strollers to Crest Lake Park. And, you know, first of all, there are very few crossings of Drew, and it's dangerous. So I think, you know, slowing it down, making it 2 lanes, making it multimodal friendly, this is what residents want: walkable neighborhoods, and neighborhood safety. And I think, you know, again, my understanding is the idea to do it right by eminent domain and purchasing property and widening lanes is just not going to happen. I mean, some of those houses are right on, very close to the road as it is. So I'm in favor of this. I appreciate that residents are weighing in. I appreciate the experts that have done the studies to prove that it is feasible and a good decision moving forward.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Well, I've heard the arguments on both sides of this for many years, and, the main problem with Drew Street is that it's segmented in so many different types of traffic situations. You got the commercial, the neighborhood, the US 19. As it gets closer to US 19, it gets busier. As it's going west, you get into downtown, everything kind of collapses down. And, you got to think about the future of downtown as well. I understand the mayor's concerns with doing it the right way, but I tell you, if we don't do something, nothing's going to get done, because I can tell you, we're never going to be buying land. We're never going to be moving those utilities just because of the cost involved. We have a pretty much fully funded project that's been through FDOT. I see the worst part of Drew Street, basically Duncan to Myrtle going west, because of the lane. First of all, that's neighborhoods in there. The lanes are very narrow, and then you have a hill there that once people start going, they go down the hill and they pick up speed, and they're going way over the speed limit. And it's a concern for the neighbors in that area. Once you get past basically Keene going east, I mean, you got 4 lanes. You got 2 lanes on each side going out to 19. I think it'll work fine. I'm all for moving forward on getting it done. The FDOT is ready to go. I think on the streets in the downtown, in other words, west of Myrtle, I think maybe we can do some, when we have events, if we need to, we can do some one-way lane changes during that process. But, Fort Harrison is a different animal now, and it was made that way because we really wanted to move traffic over to Myrtle as a north-south corridor, because the main problem is Court and Chestnut with the beach traffic, being a block from each other, just throws a wrench into the traffic flow and then you get downtown, and then you get past that. So that's never really going to be fixed just because of the situation we're in. But we can fix Drew Street. I go down, I've gone down and I've looked at the utilities on Drew Street. There's a lot of big utilities that need to be moved. They're right in the middle of the, actually, sidewalks now. So I think we need to, if we go to the single lanes in that area and we do a turn lane, I think that's going to manage that traffic. I think it'll manage that traffic a lot better. I use that Drew Street a lot. I use Cleveland a lot. Cleveland I'm fine with. I can get back and forth on Cleveland pretty quick. It's a slower drive, but it's a quicker drive in terms of overall time. And I think that's what will happen with Drew Street. I think the safety measure we need to have for the neighborhoods is very important. So I'm probably going to support moving forward with this plan the way it is.
Well, I've got to make a couple comments about your all's comments. So if any expert comes up now, Councilmember Beckman, we're never going to question them, right?
No.
Because if they're an expert, doggone it, that's it, right? I just want to hear that, because that's what I just heard.
I always ask questions.
I understand that, but if an expert sits up there and tells us to jump off the bridge, we're doing it, right? Experience is a wonderful teacher. I'm hearing even from Councilmember Albrecht, we slowed Fort Harrison down, which you're right, boy, we slowed it down all right. So you're saying that that move from 4 lanes to 2 lanes with a center turn lane slowed down Fort Harrison? You're admitting that?
No, I'm saying that there's a lot more factors on Fort Harrison that slowed traffic down. Court and Chestnut is a great example. Even if you have 6 lanes there, you have that intersection with people going to the beach. It's always going to be slow there.
Well, the problem is there's no stacking. So with the interval of the lights, there's no way to have the throughput. And so what people have done, and you just also said Cleveland is faster, so you're admitting that people are going to start taking Cleveland because it is going to be faster. So all of the traffic
I didn't say it's going to be
that was
faster
done-
than Drew Street. I'm saying it will be the same. I can get down Cleveland sometimes as in the same amount of time that taking Drew Street and coming to a car that's turning left on Drew Street, blocking the lane when everybody's going. I just think a center turn lane will be the answer to, especially in that section from Duncan to Myrtle. That's the main thing that causes accidents, I think, because people are in that center lane, they think they're going faster in the center lane, and they don't anticipate people turning into driveways and into streets both ways, going east and going west. And you have these situations where the traffic stops dead there.
Well, I just want to make it perfectly clear that this is a terrible idea, and I think I'll be proven right. So I think I've got it clear on the record. Councilmember Tejeda.
I just want to be clear and go on record. When the comment says residents want this, let's be responsible in the way we speak. Many residents want them, but just as many does not want this. I've gotten many communications from residents, business owners, and even visitors. Big diversity of people reached out and said that this is not the option. So it's not clearly overwhelming what the city wants. It's just, there's 2 sides like all the time. So I don't want to discredit or just dismiss those residents who don't agree with the proposal. Also, I've been pretty involved in what's been going on with the city for about 10 years. Consultants have been wrong. I've seen studies where just with walking down the street, can see that the data was wrong. And so that's why we're elected officials, so we have to make a decision and not just accept consultants' information, at will. So I've seen where studies have been, wrong, and so I don't want to just give them that carte blanche. Yes, this is what you want. Let's all go for it. I just want to go on record saying that the safety issue is real. I just don't think that this is the solution.
Well, we'll get the letter at the next meeting. 13.3.
Approve a partnerships and support grant agreement with Clearwater Historical Society.
Good morning, Mike Maxwell, Chief Innovation Officer. This is an agreement that we're bringing forward after our conversation 2 weeks ago about the Historical Society. What we've brought forward today is actually a one-year agreement. It covers us through fiscal year 23. That gives us an opportunity to work through the ARPA grant and then also work through the funding for the future years as well, so you've got all the information when you make the decision on both of those items. With any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Maxwell? Vice Mayor?
I appreciate the language in the legislative text about, having it go through a process. So I appreciate that we'll look at it during our budget as well as consider during ARPA grant allocation. And, ultimately, it looks like the Clearwater Historical Society would like $60,000 a year for 3 years, which I think is reasonable, and I appreciate all that they do. But again, I think it's just honoring this process and procedure. So I'm happy to, I think $20,000 now to take them through September is perfectly legitimate.
Councilmember Albright?
Well, it's a completely different agreement than before, but, I think that we really need to get it moving along, get some money to them because they really need it. They were looking forward to, I think, a budget last year before the city manager was fired, and I'm glad we're moving forward to give them something in anticipation of maybe something more later.
Councilmember Teixeira. Oh, I thought you had your hand up. All right, consent?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Margolis, anything?
Just briefly, I know that Stuart Berger from the Jewish Federation has reached out to a couple of you and have discussed the possibility of preparing a resolution dealing with anti-Semitism. So I'm bringing it up now for two reasons. Number one, because under council rules, I do need direction from the council publicly before I prepare a resolution. So I wanted to make sure council gives me that direction in public. And then number two, I would like to discuss with each of you one-on-one a little bit of the content of the resolution and how we're going to shape that. But if I get that direction from council, then I'm happy to start working on that and get your feedback one-on-one on how we're going to frame that.
Well, I did ask him to talk to all 5 council members because I don't want just, a couple. So I hope he's touched base with everybody now. Is that the case? Okay. Are we in support of having the city attorney go forward?
Yes.
Okay. There are your marching orders. Anything else?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anything else from you, Ms. Boyer? All right. City council salaries?
So, just not to rehash the whole thing, I proposed in the last work session, as I promised during my campaign, to bring before the council the raising of our salaries. And it all boils down to the fact that I think that it's at $27,000 a year, we are severely restricting the accessibility to this position for the majority of our citizens. So having said that, I went through the whole, Clearwater's unique with the unique challenges, that it's not really a part-time. I went through all that. And then the results of that discussion was that Mayor Hibbard wanted some more data and comparisons. So I had to really think about, with Clearwater unique challenges exceeding its size, which cities do I think were kind of comparable? So the cities were Gainesville, Tallahassee, Orlando, St. Pete, and Tampa. But I really focused on the ones nearby, which was Orlando, St. Pete, and Tampa. Now, granted, they are a strong mayor form of government, which means that the city council members have significantly reduced responsibilities. And they also have districts, which further limits their responsibility geographically. And again, it is a strong mayor form of government. But looking at those three, the range is between $73,000 and $54,000, with Gainesville just voting for $71,000 as effective October 1st of 2023. Now, since I proposed this, full transparency, I've been so pleased with the support that I've heard. However, I did receive or heard two kind of schools of thought. First is that being a city council member is of a sort of a spiritual calling and should be considered a volunteer position. I disagree. It, again, limits the accessibility to this position. The second is that I can pinch my pennies and budget well and live on $27,000 a year. I challenge that person to come up with a budget for that. Interestingly enough, those who have expressed that opinion are the very people who passionately want Clearwater to provide affordable housing. So with that in mind, I'm not sure how that works. So even if it's a single person without dependents on $27,000, that means that the city would have to provide affordable housing for its members, city council members. So I don't buy into that either. Now, I acknowledge that requesting $72,000 to match Orlando, let's say, or $71,000 for Gainesville, it might be too much to chew at this time. So I was looking for something comparable to St. Pete, which is about $56,000, with it being effective in the 2024 election, since your seat will be open, and I really would like to extend a wider net for candidates. So, anyone have any opinion on $56,000?
Councilmember Bunker.
Staff was going to give a recommendation for what they thought would be appropriate, correct? We haven't seen that yet.
So staff did respond with the updates that, based on the request.
Well, I did see that.
Yeah, so that's what was provided, and then I know Vice Mayor asked for some additional information, and that was also provided.
I thought they would come back with a figure.
Normally, the charter review looks at this as well. I don't think they've gotten that far. Mr. Margolis.
I wasn't sure you were asking me or telling me, but no, they have not brought that up at this time.
Well, we could direct them to look at it, but
Yes.
normally they do. I mean, I can't remember a time when they haven't.
That is true. Typically it does, but if there's consensus of the group, I'm pretty sure the attorney would agree. That would be great direction to provide to the group.
Yeah, I've been on both sides of this. I was on the charter review in 2015, and we talked about it. Every charter review talks about this. And there's good arguments on both sides. I think sitting here today, I think my recommendation would be give it to the charter review committee to come up with something that we are talking about. Before, when we brought it up to council, they never talked about it. Well, we're talking about it now. And maybe we need some direction from them to go forward. I think it would be a good idea. And it'd be a good thing for them to be talking about it in a big group and come back to us with a recommendation.
Well, I think it's beneficial that it's more citizen-driven than council-driven.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I have mixed feelings. I mean, I do think this is public service, and you certainly don't do it for the money. I haven't done it for the money. Nobody would do it for the money. The amount of hours that you expend, it's not necessarily a wise use of your time. Where my concern comes in is this is still going to be a part-time job. I do not want people to have so much time that they start to get in these two's business, and it filters down. And I think that is one of the issues when you're paying wages that literally will sustain you so that you don't have to work and do anything else. And I'm the only one up here that really has a full-time job. But I think it can start to result in micromanaging and basically not staying within the spirit of the charter. I will tell you, when Strong Mayor was being considered, which I found to be amazing, and I didn't take a position on either side during that debate. In fact, when I was asked to talk about it, I gave pros and cons of both forms of government. But they were only talking about 120 for a strong mayor. And I can tell you, I don't know why anybody, I guess some people would, but I don't know why anybody would quit their job and potentially be out of a job within 4 years, and absolutely out of a job within 8. That takes a special situation, in my opinion, unless you plan to go on to have higher aspirations. I'd recommend throwing this to the charter review, and then if the results are not in line with where we think we want to go, then we can have that broader discussion. Councilmember Bunker.
I have always hated it when politicians give themselves a hefty raise, always. I could definitely use some extra money. But there are a lot of people in the city who are in the same shape or worse than I am that can't give themselves a raise. So, I think I'd be hypocritical to vote yes to increase it. But I think it's a good idea to send it to charter review and see what their recommendations are.
Vice Mayor, you have anything?
No, I think it's fine to turn it over to the Charter Review Committee.
My fear is that we're expecting a different expectation doing the same thing. It hasn't been resolved in a long time. So why would we expect that for them to come back with something? I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. But I hope that we're not just repeating the same routine and expecting different results.
I think the different results are that we're talking about it. I don't know of any other, maybe I'm a council that has really discussed it in a
We
long
talked
time.
about it back in the mid-2000s.
Did you?
Yeah, but it's always been uncomfortable, right? Vice Mayor?
Well, I think too, if the goal is to have more diverse representation on the council, you should give direction to the charter to look at districts or whatever, what other means there might be to achieve that, if that's part of the goal.
It's not just diversity. For me, it's not just diversity. It's accessibility. We have created leadership which is unattainable, inaccessible to the vast majority of our citizens. And that's what I'm trying to kind of offset. And I think that we are limiting by a great number of talented people that would do a great job, but simply cannot do it because of the salary. So for me, it's not just diversity, it's accessibility to our residents, or citizens rather.
But I would say it's not simply the salary. I would say it's the cost to run an election is the first hurdle.
And I disagree. If you have support, you will get it. And Mr. Bunker here is proof that you don't. So it's not an infinite, right? If you do have support, you will get funding. And even if you don't, it's not impossible. We all raise different amounts here.
I think a good discussion would be exactly what is our job parameters. Because I've talked to some people that say, hey, I can make a meeting every couple of weeks, you know. I go, well, it's a lot more than that. That should be a good discussion point with Charter Review Committee.
Well, I think, but some of that can be changed, you know. I think the quality of life of council members and frankly, making staff more efficient would be better if we had 6 months out of the year where we only had one meeting and 6 months where we had two. That gives you a broader spread. Now, those months where you're only going to have one meeting, you know that the work session and the council meeting are going to be much larger, but then you're going to have some space in between. Some other things, though, that I really do think ought to be looked at also from a kind of a compensation standpoint is, you know, there's nothing given to anybody for any retirement. You're not a part of the pension. And there's ways to benefit people so that they can get some type of money into a retirement plan or get a match. And the other thing I've always wanted is that the city actually buy a life insurance policy on council members. We drive around a lot for the city, seriously. And, you know, I think we all know that sometimes it's dangerous and you're tacking on a lot of miles that you would otherwise never drive. And I've always thought that would be something, you know, a term policy for the term of somebody's period of being in office, not very expensive. So those are some other things, you know, when you talk about compensation that I think really ought to be looked at. Anything else? Do you have enough direction?
No,
You don't. I don't think so.
So just going to say it straight. So just a couple of things. So number one, not in any way to weigh in on the policy discussion over the council salaries, but just to Councilmember Bunker's point about the giving yourself a raise, right, which does make it uncomfortable. The council does have the option to delay implementation of it, and so although it could go into effect March of 2024, it could also be implemented later than that. And so if council wanted to pass something now, which voters then approved for a future, that is also one possibility. Again, not taking sides on it, just want to make sure council has the options available. Second thing, as far as the Charter Review Commission, I think the initial feedback I've gotten from them is that I think they would certainly be more than happy to get direction from council as to specific items that you guys would like them to look at. I think we've heard from multiple Charter Review members that they would actually really appreciate that. However, as we've heard, there is significant difference of opinion on the topics that they should be looking at. You know, the agenda item we have right now is discussing council member salaries, and yet even in the context of that item, we also have conversation about districts and other configurations. So my ask, and I think the Charter Review Committee would appreciate this as well, if the council does want the Charter Review Committee to look at salaries or any other topic, I really think that needs to be voted on by the council. That way there is a clear direction, and so since this item is on the agenda already for today's work session, my suggestion would be that on Thursday, the council put it to a vote if you would like to direct the Charter Review Committee to look specifically at council salaries. And as you think of other things, by all means, bring them up at work session, and you guys can decide if there are other topics you'd like them to look at, because I think that'll be well received by them.
Okay, we'll plan on that for Thursday. Item 15.2 is an update by the Vice Mayor on the Tampa Bay Estuary Program.
Yeah, so I have attached this handout that the Tampa Bay Estuary Program gives to me about Clearwater's benefits with the Tampa Bay Estuary Program, and so I just wanted to share that with you. So the Tampa Bay Estuary Program does not do any lobbying at all. They're really a scientific organization that's out there to inform, use data, and their goal is to, maintain the quality of our estuary and get it cleaner. The biggest impediment to that are the bridges. That Courtney Campbell Causeway is the biggest problem out there because it does not allow enough water circulation and flow. And so, there are some big picture ideas and plans of perhaps, dreams, not plans, of cutting out parts of it and raising it up a little bit to allow more circulation. And, we'll keep our fingers crossed that might happen. But in my conversation with Ed Sherwood, who's the director, I talked to him about, there's a House Bill 1197 and Senate Bill 1240, which is land and water management. It prohibits counties and municipalities from adopting laws, regulations, rules, or policies relating to water quality or quantity, pollution control, pollutant discharge prevention or removal, and wetlands, preempting such regulation to the state, and repealing a provision relating to land management review teams, etc. So it's a preemption bill. It has to do with what individual municipalities can do to keep their water clean and deal with the estuary. And so, it's something that we need to keep an eye on. It might be changing in its iterations, but, as Ed said, and again, they don't take any kind of formal position, but the partnerships that they've had with different municipalities in our county, in our region, have been beneficial, and that needs to be kind of custom for what we need here. Mr. Sherwood, I asked him, what do you think about what's going on with red tide right now? Any kind of feedback? He said, it was similar to what we experienced between 2017 and 19. He's very concerned. It got pretty bad during the summer of 2018, which I clearly remember. They're watching it now. It seems to be intensifying along the coast, not so much in the bay yet, but it's not a good sign that it's this intense this early in the year. with that, what I wanted to say was, what can individuals do? You know, if they're worried about red tide, what can I do as an individual? So there's a list of things. They seem little, but it all adds up, and there are little things you can do. Certainly, you want to pick up after your pet. Don't throw pet waste into the ocean, even though you think all those ocean critters eliminate out there. Don't add to it with your pet. Obviously, you want to reduce your water consumption at home, plant native plants, limit watering, create rain gardens, use mulch and compost instead of fertilizers. If you choose to use fertilizers or pesticides, be sure they are organic. You really want to try to reduce paved areas around your home. You know, the idea is that any water seeps into the dirt and ground where it is, and it doesn't flow off into our estuary or waterways. Avoid washing your car in paved areas. Instead, wash it on grass or gravel, or you can go to a commercial car wash where they have drains and filters. Please try to restrict chemicals and fertilizers that the city residents use. They, wash down in our stormwater. Let's see. So, as Ed went on, he said, the big thing is to keep an eye on red tide. It may impact our local economy this summer, address wastewater, stormwater, and look at reducing nutrient intrusion. And Rich Gardner sits on that nitrogen abatement kind of committee. But here's something just to understand. Transit, as we have more and more people moving into our area, transit and those emissions from vehicles account for 17 to 20% of the load in nutrients that gets absorbed into our water. And it will continue to put pressure on the bay as well as this increasing population. And then finally, and Rich isn't here, but I could talk to Rich. Ed said he's been contacted about projects in our region for federal appropriations and earmarks. And so if the city has interest in communicating a request for federal funding for a project, for example, the enhanced use of reclaimed water or other ideas, we need to communicate with Ed, and he's happy to help facilitate and advocate for those types of projects. Oh, and it's the Nutrient Management Consortium is what you probably already know. Yep. And then I didn't know, does this kind of communication fall under our grant writer? I haven't met that person, I don't think.
Sarah DiLorenzo.
Yeah.
She works with the departments when they identify potential projects for grant funding, but she also advises the staff when there are grant programs available. So I wrote it down. I will talk to her about it, to reach out to the department. I don't think they've reached out to her yet. So It really is aligning departments' needs. And we're trying to get into a schedule because one of the issues that we ran into is that most of our projects are already funded, and we can't go out for grant funding for projects already in the mix. We need to think more forward thinking.
New ones, okay. And then I guess so anyway, this gives you information that Tampa Bay Estuary Program is leveraging our funds, so we get a lot of benefit from it. For every $1 contributed by the city of Clearwater, they leveraged about a $260 value. And then there's information about this PFAS in the back that's kind of interesting. And so you might want to read that. I don't know who eats fish 3 days a week from our waters, but there are some, they've got some different concerns about PFAS in our area. And that's the update from Tampa Bay Estuary Program.
Any questions? Okay. Any new business for future meetings? Councilmember Albrecht.
I'd like to find out if the causeway, what they were doing with the invasive species was completed, and maybe get a report on the amount of that they took out of there. I saw them the first day they started, but I didn't see them since, so. Thanks.
Something I've been talking to the city manager about is creating an affordability index for our city. And I'd like to talk about that at a future meeting. because I think it is beneficial if we created some metrics from our millage rate to our water, solid waste, and all the different costs that we have, and have basically a dashboard that compares us to other cities within the county. So I'm thinking, St. Petersburg, Largo, maybe Dunedin and Tampa, but what it would do is it's a barometer for everybody to keep in mind going forward when we're talking about the budget. I think it would be informative in the way we make decisions. And I don't think it would take staff much time to assemble it. Not talking about a, full-blown regression equation, something that we could look at, and, because we talk about affordability a lot, but we do have something to do with that. And I think it's something we kind of need to keep at the forefront. Are we making certain that we're delivering services in the most efficient and effective manner? And I think we have higher standards in some cities, and that's a good thing. What makes you different sets you apart, but I think we also have to be aware of costs. So you all can let that maturate. Maybe we can have a discussion about it at a future
I think
meeting.
it's a good idea.
Councilmember Bunker.
First off, everybody, happy L. Ron Hubbard's birthday. I hope you have a terrific day. I was actually kind of surprised reading the surveys for Coachman Park about all the negative comments about Scientology, which ranked high up there. And, I don't know why I was surprised, because I've certainly heard those comments for years, and I've been making those comments for years. But I guess I've been feeling so positive about, the motion forward, that the Scientology's impact is lessening in my mind because of, the amphitheater, the park, apartments, apartments, a hotel, retail, a beer garden, all these things. So I think we've got a lot of great stuff that can be offsetting the Scientology thing. But we do need to figure out what the heck is going on with the land deal. I mean, last time I heard about the swap, Ms. Gabbage seems to think he needs more. And we need to consider how we can handle all these empty buildings downtown. And that is a serious concern, and I hope we can come up with a serious solution.
Councilmember Shea.
I just want to expand on your thought process regarding affordability. I would really appreciate having like a little presentation about how and where new affordable or workforce housing exists in this city, what's in the future, and what are the possible new sites, all in one source. Because I get asked those questions and I don't know all the answers to them. So sort of like a stated, running numbers.
Okay, anything else? All right, we're adjourned until Thursday.
Look at that, you've got.